Hey guys, today I'll show you a science fiction thriller TV series named The Swarm. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The drama begins with a Peruvian fisherman starting his day as usual, heading to the sea early to fish. After finding a good spot, he skillfully casts his net. But as he hauls it in, he feels a powerful force pulling from beneath the water, causing him to lose his balance and fall into the sea. Seeing his net sinking, the fisherman takes a deep breath and dives toward the seabed. He couldn't afford to lose the tool of his trade. Just as he is about to cut the snagged net free, the entire seafloor suddenly darkens. The fisherman looks up to see countless fish swarming toward him, sealing his tragic fate. But the strange events don't stop there. The next morning, the body of a 30-ton orca is found beached on the sand, covered in wounds. It was clearly killed in an attack. Leon, a researcher from the Marine Biology Institute, is baffled. He wonders what on earth could kill such a massive ocean predator. The only culprit he can think of is the fishermen who live on the nearby coast. A team of investigators soon drives to the nearest fishing village. Leon directly approaches an old fisherman he knows. As soon as he mentions the beached orca, the old man falls silent and then leads them to a port. There, a damaged fishing boat is moored, its hull nearly torn through by immense force. The old fisherman explains that they were attacked by orcas while fishing early that morning. To save their own shitty lives, they had no choice but to fight back with weapons. Leon is skeptical. Orcas, though fierce predators, are typically friendly towards humans and wouldn't attack a fishing boat without reason. The old fisherman doesn't bother explaining further. In all his years of fishing, this is the first time he's ever encountered such a thing. Leon is lost in thought. Looking at the damage to the boat, he feels the old man isn't lying. He rushes back to the institute to check his data. The local orca population should have migrated to other waters months ago. He's eager to know why this one stayed behind and why it attacked humans suddenly. With a mind full of questions, Leon finds his girlfriend, who works as a part-time whale-watching guide. Since she often takes tourists out to see whales, Leon repeatedly warns her to be careful. Unfortunately, his girlfriend doesn't take him seriously, as she has always seen orcas as humanity's loyal companions. But Leon no longer believes this. For safety's sake, he begins monitoring the movements of orcas in the nearby waters. Sure enough, he detects several orcas approaching the coastline. Leon immediately calls to warn his girlfriend, but she is ecstatic. She tells him her company's cruise ship is preparing to take guests out for a deep-sea tour. A sense of dread washes over Leon, but he can't interfere with her work. He decides to take his own boat out to check on the orcas himself. Not long after Leon puts on his headphones, a massive creature swims up from the depths. It's an adult humpback whale, one of the gentlest mammals in the ocean. Yet Leon's heart pounds with anxiety. He senses that its eyes are filled with coldness and murderous intent. He only breathes a sigh of relief when the humpback dives back into the sea. What he doesn't know is that his girlfriend's tour boat, packed with tourists, is stopped nearby. The same humpback whale has approached their vessel. The tourists are thrilled by the sight, and when it breaches the surface, leaping spectacularly into the air, everyone cheers in amazement. But Leon, who is still listening, hears a different sound. Looking out, he spots 4 orcas racing through the water, heading directly for his girlfriend's tour boat. Panicked, Leon starts his Tesla boat and speeds towards his girlfriend's location. He tries to raise them on the radio, but there's no answer from the bridge. The passengers on the cruise ship are still admiring the majestic humpback. But as it crests out of the water again, their awe turns to terror. The whale is coming down right on top of their vessel. As the boat shatters into onion pieces, passengers are thrown into the sea. And this is only the beginning. The 4 vicious orcas charge into the crowd, launching an indiscriminate attack. By the time Leon arrives, the scene is chaos. People are being dragged underwater one after another. He does his best to rescue survivors. He finally spots his girlfriend and is about to pull her from the water when an orca attacks her without hormone mercy. In the 10 days that follow, Leon is consumed by grief. He cannot understand why the orcas and the humpback whale would suddenly attack humans. He quietly vows to uncover the reason for the whale's strange behavior. One day, Leon receives a valuable lead. A large cargo ship in Canadian waters was also attacked by humpback whales. According to the captain, the sailors had done nothing to provoke them when 2 humpbacks suddenly leaped out of the water and landed on their vessel. Leon is puzzled, wondering what the motive behind these attacks is. While inspecting the damaged ship, he notices something else that's strange. The crew had cleaned the hull right before departure, but after just a dozen days at sea, its surface is covered with a large number of mussels. Leon takes some samples back to the lab. A biologist confirms they are mussels, but notes that they stop swimming after reaching adulthood. This means all the mussels on the ship's hull reproduced there. To grow so numerous in such a short time is impossible for any known shellfish. A female colleague accidentally discovers a white liquid flowing from one of the shells. The biologist can't identify it and says it needs to be sent to a specialized lab for analysis, with no telling when the results will be back. Impatient, Leon decides to dissect the beached orca, hoping to find abnormalities in its body. With the help of several assistants, Leon thoroughly examines the orca. Its internal organs seem normal, but he finds clot-like substances in its brainstem, resembling a fungus attached to the brain tissue. However, its exact nature also requires further testing. Meanwhile, on the Shetland Islands in the Pacific, oceanic researcher Charlie is gathering wood for warmth before returning to her watchtower. She has been stationed alone here for over 6 months, exiled to this god-forsaken place as punishment for a lab fire caused by an accident. At night, her only comfort is video calling her friends and colleagues back at headquarters. Suddenly, a buoy on the sea sends out an alert. Without delay, Charlie jumps into her speedboat and heads toward the buoy. The sea surface looks calm, so Charlie dons her gear and dives down to investigate. It turns out a sensor was tangled in a fishing net, but just as she's about to untangle it, the buoy's alarm mysteriously stops. A chill runs down her spine all the way to her smelly butt. It seems there is something terrifying in the deep. Not daring to linger, she grabs the sensor and heads for the surface. When Charlie breaks the surface, she finds that her speedboat, which was tied to the buoy, is gone without a trace. Looking around, she secures the sensor to the buoy and starts swimming. She manages to catch up to the drifting boat just before her strength gives out. Climbing aboard, Charlie gasps for air, realizing just how difficult it is to be out here alone. The next day, a helicopter lands on the Shetland Islands. A team from headquarters has arrived. Charlie is overjoyed to be reunited with her friends, though the reason is bittersweet. The sensor she retrieved yesterday is damaged. While it's being repaired, Charlie catches up with her friends. When the helicopter takes off again, she watches them go with a heavy heart, their visit all too brief. Feeling lonely, Charlie heads to a pub for a drink where she meets a charming young man she hits it off with. That very night, they become a couple after performing a fast but fantastic hormone yoga session. When her new boyfriend learns she has to go out to sea to redeploy the repaired sensor, he volunteers to go with her, knowing how dangerous it is to go alone. After they successfully deploy the sensor, her boyfriend spots a strange, bubbling piece of ice floating on the water. Charlie recognizes it. After fishing it out, she takes out a lighter and explains that it's methane hydrate. Methane released by algae on the seabed freezes under high pressure and low temperatures, and occasionally pieces break off and float to the surface. But her boyfriend looks concerned, pointing out that there isn't just one piece, there are many. Charlie is stunned. She quickly takes out her phone to document the unusual phenomenon. Back at the tower, she immediately reports her findings to her superiors. Such a large-scale upwelling of methane hydrate could indicate an anomaly on the seabed. Her boss at headquarters takes it very seriously and instructs Charlie to use the underwater drone to find the cause. At the same time, deep beneath the sea off the coast of France, a greedy lobster crawls toward a trap. After being hauled up by a fishing boat, it soon ends up as an ingredient on a chef's cutting board. But as the head chef cuts it open, a white liquid oozes from its tail. The chef leans in for a closer look, only for the lobster to spray more of the liquid at him. Annoyed, he wipes his greasy face and tells his assistant to dispose of the diseased lobster. The kitchen porter puts it through a grinder, and the assistant chef also gets splashed with the unknown fluid. That night, the head chef suddenly feels unwell, breaking out in a cold sweat. He decides to step outside for some fresh air but collapses to the ground. As the unknown pathogen from the sea is about to break out, an unknown disaster awaits an unsuspecting humanity. The ocean's revenge can be terrifying. The head chef drops dead on the street on his way home from work that night. His assistant chef collapses the next day and is rushed to the hospital. The emergence of two connected cases quickly catches the attention of Dr. Cecile. She tells her partner to keep a close watch for similar patients and immediately goes to the restaurant to investigate. A waiter informs Cecile that besides the head chef and his assistant, a cleaner also handled the lobster, throwing it into the garbage disposal. That cleaner also failed to show up for work today. Cecile feels a sense of foreboding. Following the address the waiter provided, she soon arrives at the cleaner's home to find the door wide open. Worried, Cecile steps inside. Suddenly, her phone rings. It's the hospital. The assistant chef who was admitted that morning began convulsing. His pupils dilated, and then he stopped breathing and went to meet Jesus. Before Cecile can hang up, she sees the cleaner, dead like a piece of shit in her bedroom. Deeply shaken, Cecile reports the matter to the police and rushes back to her lab. She places a drop of the chef's blood sample on a slide, then adds a drop of her own. A horrifying scene unfolds. The bacteria are rapidly devouring her diabetic blood cells. Cecile recognizes it as a bacterium usually contracted through open wounds or consuming raw seafood. It's normally not fatal, but this strain not only bypasses the human immune system, but it also consumes cells at an alarming rate. It has likely mutated into a new strain. Just as Cecile feels relieved that no one else has been infected, a car wash worker is making funny faces at a girl in a car. Suddenly, he feels unwell and leans against the car for support. The driver honks impatiently and then watches in horror as the worker coughs up a spray of blood and collapses, unconscious. He is rushed to the hospital, only to find it already overwhelmed with patients showing similar symptoms. The outbreak quickly grabs the attention of local authorities. Experts flock to the scene, trying to identify the source of the infection. By now, Dr. Cecile probably knows more than anyone. The pathogen is certainly not airborne, or the number of infected would be much higher. She suddenly recalls the waiter mentioning that the deceased cleaner had thrown the lobster into a garbage disposal. It seems the pathogen has already spread through the city's water supply system. Alarmed, Cecile immediately buys a case of bottled water and urges her husband to take their children away from the coast and to avoid drinking tap water. A massive crisis is looming, and this is only the beginning. Above the waters of Mexico, marine biologist Dr. Johansson arrives by helicopter on an oil exploration vessel. The crew looks grim, as if they've encountered something unbelievable. They explain that while exploring for oil on the seabed, they discovered a patch of white worms and wanted him to take a look. At first, Johansson isn't concerned, identifying them as common ice worms that sometimes feed on frozen methane. But environmental expert Tina adds that when they first found them 2 days ago, they only covered about 50 square meters. Now, they have spread across the entire area. A little surprised, Johansson instructs the drone operator to move closer to the seabed. The next second, the monitor goes black, only returning a minute later. A crew member explains that this has been happening frequently lately, but they don't know why. Johansson dismisses it and asks the drone to collect an iceworm sample. The test results are astonishing. Normal iceworms don't have such large gear-like mandibles and teeth, nor do they have such a staggering reproductive rate. This is likely a new species. If so, the local government, citing species protection principles, would certainly halt oil exploration in the area. Johansson has no choice but to send the sample to a research institute on shore for further study. After a 24-hour simulation, the team discovers that the ice worms can consume the bacterial mat they live on and then burrow into the ice below. This explains their oversized teeth. But what's baffling is that there's no food beneath the ice. The worms quickly suffocate and die after burrowing. Why would they do this, knowing it means certain death? Tina is most concerned about their terrifying reproductive rate. She decides to report this to her superiors, as the ice worms could potentially overrun large oil fields in a short time, severely impacting the company's exploration progress. The higher-ups are clear. Oil exploration must continue, but local species protection policies must also be respected. Tina is speechless. For now, all she can do is conduct further research on the newly discovered ice worms. Soon after, the team returns to the exploration vessel. As the drone descends, Dr. Johansson sees that the number of ice worms has increased dramatically. They decide to drill through the ice layer beneath the bacterial mat. As the drill bit goes deeper, the vessel begins to tremble slightly. A massive amount of gas erupts from the sea, carrying a surge of water with it. The huge ship is tossed about like a toy. Fortunately, the gas burst is brief and the sea quickly calms. An expert explains that the drill punctured the seabed, releasing trapped methane. They were lucky their ship was large enough, otherwise it could have been pulled under. Johansson and his team are shaken, realizing they are risking their lives for this research. But they have made a discovery. Through long-term simulations, they find that even after the burrowing worms die, the bacteria inside them continue to break down the ice. This might explain the large amount of methane hydrate seen on the surface earlier. A professor tells everyone not to worry. Even if the entire ice shelf breaks, the amount of methane released wouldn't be enough to damage the atmosphere. The only thing to watch for is their terrifying reproductive rate. It would be best to contact other regions to see if similar ice worms have been found. Tina, ever safety conscious, decides to spend a day investigating. If similar worms are found in multiple locations, the released methane could indeed affect the atmosphere. Meanwhile, on a research vessel on the other side of the ocean, two observers notice a violent disturbance on the seafloor. The ship begins to shake, and massive waves rise from the sea, instantly engulfing the entire vessel. The Research Institute headquarters soon receives news of the ship's sinking. When Charlie learns that her friends have died, she freezes in shock. After a long time, she composes herself and decides to return to headquarters immediately. She must find out why the research vessel sank. It will be the last thing she does for her departed friends. Back on the exploration vessel, Johansson wastes no time reporting the two methane-related incidents to his superiors. He believes that everything, including the whale attacks on fishing boats, might be connected to the mutated ice worms on the seabed. Management forwards the images to their Asia-Pacific director, Mr. Mifune, who quickly arranges a video conference. It turns out they encountered similar ice worms while drilling for oil in the South China Sea. Although smaller than the ones in the Norwegian Sea, they also had sharp teeth and gear-like mandibles. The company executives are now in a panic. They advise all exploration vessels to stay away from the ice worm areas and invite Johansson and Tina to go out to sea again to determine the full extent of the mutated ice worm infestation. But they aren't the only ones searching for the truth. Whale expert Leon, who personally witnessed a whale attack, has traveled to several countries, desperate to find the reason for the whale's aggression. When he marks the locations of the incidents on a map, he notices a familiar pattern and has a sudden realization. It's the whale's migration route. If something is affecting them, it must be happening during their migration. Leon comes up with a bold idea. After his colleague locates the whale's sleeping position, he dons his diving gear and jumps into the sea. As he descends, he sees massive whales suspended motionless in the water, like giant hanging meats. Leon carefully navigates between them and attaches a small camera to one of the whales. But this small action instantly awakens all of them. Leon feels like mountains are moving around him. Wasting no time, he kicks his legs hard and shoots to the surface. As soon as his head is above water, his colleague pulls him onto the speedboat, and they speed away from the danger. Safely back at the Institute, Leon immediately connects the camera to view the footage. His colleagues stare intently at the screen. Meanwhile, Charlie has also returned to her company's headquarters. Her supervisor informs her they've located the sunken research vessel. Soon, they too are gathered around a screen, watching the feed from an underwater ROV. As the camera gets closer, the outline of the lost ship becomes visible. Charlie thinks of her deceased colleagues, and tears stream down her sexy face. Suddenly, everyone gasps in astonishment. Behind the wrecked ship, a shimmering mass of silver light appears. At the same time, Leon and his team, watching the whale footage, also wear grave expressions. The whales are all stationary in front of a similar silver mass of light, as if receiving some kind of mysterious signal. On a beach in South Africa, a smelly couple is enjoying a romantic moment when a white crab scuttles by, breaking the mood. The young man doesn't think much of it, but in the next moment, countless white crabs crawl out of the ocean. Without a second thought, the couple turns and runs for their shitty lives. Luckily, their Tesla motorcycle is parked nearby. The man revs the engine and they speed off, but he forgets to slow down at an intersection, and they are thrown from the bike. Soon after, a dense swarm of white crabs covers the entire street like a plague of locusts. Recently, several people have noticed the ocean's abnormal behavior. Leon and Charlie's team have both discovered a large, glowing mass on the ocean floor. Everyone is baffled, not knowing what this entity is and how it is connected to the recent shipwrecks and whale attacks. Leon knows that the only marine organism capable of sustained bioluminescence is the sea sparkle, but they live near the surface, not in the deep sea. And then there's the strange, ethereal sound. Leon is certain it's not made by any known marine animal. His bearded colleague offers a cynical perspective. In the last century, the military tested all sorts of weapons and would often cover them up by fabricating stories about aliens. These glowing ocean entities could be part of some secret experiment. But Leon finds that unlikely, given that people have died in the recent incidents. Fortunately, the biologists have made some progress. The test results for the mutated mussels are in. It turns out that it's not just their location. New variants of mussels have been discovered simultaneously in several places around the world, something that was previously considered impossible. Furthermore, the clot-like substance extracted from the orca's brainstem is the same organic compound as the transparent mucus secreted by the mussels. Determining its exact components will require more sample. Leon feels he is getting closer to the truth. He drives back to the port where the damaged cargo ship is docked, hoping to get more mussels for his experiments. But the guard at the gate tells him the area is now restricted. Undeterred, the passionate young researcher sneaks over the fence under the cover of darkness. But before he can even get close to the ship, the lights flash on and a group of guards appears. Leon freezes and quickly hides in a shipping container, but he's no match for the guards with their dogs. He is soon caught and held in the guardhouse like a thief. It's not until the official he met before shows up that Leon gets a chance to explain he only wanted more mussel samples and couldn't reach his previous contact. But trespassing in a private port is a serious offense, and the official can't simply let him go. Leon has to explain himself to the higher-ups. It turns out the shipping corporation is very interested in these rapidly reproducing mussels as they affect the efficiency of their fleet. They immediately offer Leon their full support. Without moving an inch, he ends up with several large boxes of packed mussels. Still, Leon is annoyed at being treated like a thief and having to reveal some of his research findings. The shipping corporation's executives are no fools. They immediately contact their Asia-Pacific director, Mr. Mifune. He believes there must be a connection between the rapidly breeding mussels and the recently discovered ice worms. Meanwhile, the biologist hired by the shipping group Johansson is back on the exploration vessel in the middle of the deep sea. They plan to use an ROV to remap the extent of the ice worm infestation. But when the video feed from the seabed appears, everyone on board is stunned. The entire sea floor in the vicinity has been torn apart. Johansson manages to restrain his anger and instead confronts his friend Tina because she was the one who invited him here. The area hadn't even been fully surveyed, yet the corporation was already secretly laying pipelines, a clear, illegal act. Now, Johansson doesn't know whether to expose this or not. Tina feels completely innocent, but any explanation seems futile. The two part on bad terms. Johansson then seeks out a senior supervisor at the institute for advice. The supervisor explains that if this is exposed, the shipping corporation will likely tamper with their permits. If that doesn't work, they might find a scapegoat, and Tina would be the perfect candidate. The supervisor advises Johansson to work out a solid plan with Tina before blowing the whistle. But Johansson tries calling Tina several times without success. She's probably still angry with him. Back at the institute, Charlie has finally come to terms with her friend's death. She decides to say goodbye to her supervisor and return to her monitoring station. After a difficult journey, Charlie is back in the middle of nowhere. But this time, the cold building isn't lonely. Her new boyfriend is waiting for her, which lifts her spirits. After a night together, Charlie re-watches the last video call her friend sent her. Though the grief is still sharp, she notices something new this time. In the window behind her friend, a familiar glow flashes, just like the light she saw on the seabed, accompanied by the same ethereal sound. Charlie isolates the frequency of the sound and finds it's identical to what she heard underwater. Alarmed, she immediately contacts her colleagues at headquarters to report her extraordinary finding to the supervisor. Unfortunately, the supervisor is busy discussing the dangers of the mutated ice worms with Dr. Johansson. Based on recent surveys, the ice worms are mostly found on submarine slopes. Considering their terrifying reproductive rate and burrowing ability, it's possible they could cause these slopes to collapse. The supervisor agrees this is a valid concern and could potentially trigger a massive tsunami. Charlie's friend can't wait any longer and interrupts their discussion. The supervisor, clearly annoyed, tells Charlie to get to the point. But when Charlie explains that the wavelength of the light on the ship's deck and the frequency of the sound match what was found on the seabed, the supervisor dismisses it, suggesting the glow was likely a glitch from a signal interruption and not worth discussing. But Charlie has more. She has collected data from several methane incidents and found that the water temperature in those locations spiked dramatically just before the events, which is what caused the methane blowouts, not the ice worms as previously thought. Furthermore, at the center of these three heat sources is a known thermal vent. The supervisor is losing her patience. That vent has been dormant for years, but Charlie insists it must have reactivated, reminding her of the large amount of methane hydrate she saw floating to the surface. To prove her theory, Charlie requests the use of the company's ROV to investigate the seabed. The supervisor erupts in anger, refusing to waste resources on such an absurd hypothesis. Charlie tries to argue, but the supervisor storms out. Fortunately, Dr. Johansson is more reasonable. He believes that science is about bold hypotheses and careful verification. As a supervisor, she shouldn't discourage a young, motivated researcher. His words seem to resonate with the supervisor. She returns to the communications room and begins to carefully study the data Charlie has compiled. The recent string of marine incidents has attracted the attention of the International Maritime Council. Johansson learns from the news that in addition to the mutated ice worms, there have been anomalies with lobsters, mussels, and whales. He senses that these seemingly separate events might be connected. This reminds the shipping executive of whale expert Leon, and he gives Johansson Leon's number, suggesting they talk. Johansson is eager and calls Leon immediately. Leon is happy to exchange information between different fields of expertise and shares all his research data on the mussels and whales, including the footage of the silver glowing mass. Johansson is astonished when he sees it. The image is very familiar. After careful comparison at the Institute, they confirm that the silver mass encountered by the whales is identical to the one seen when the research vessel sank, but they still can't determine its origin. The only working theory is Charlie's hypothesis about the thermal vent. Johansson feels it's necessary to provide her with an ROV to verify it. Not long after, a helicopter lands on the Shetland Islands again. Johansson personally delivers the ROV to Charlie. After he shares the whale footage with her, Charlie is even more convinced that a deep-sea exploration is necessary. She is deeply moved. It feels good to have her ideas validated. After some final words of encouragement, Johansson prepares to leave. But just as he closes the helicopter door, he receives an urgent call. A submarine landslide has occurred in the nearby waters, and they must get to higher ground immediately. Unfortunately, Charlie left her phone at home and misses the warning from her colleagues. At the same time, a dispirited Tina is at her boyfriend's small restaurant. When he's too busy to talk to her, she goes for a walk on the beach alone. Suddenly, a large flock of birds flies overhead. While people are still wondering what's happening, the sea begins to recede rapidly. Tina instantly recognizes it as the prelude to a tsunami and starts running along with the crowd. Tina is frozen in shock. The sea before her is receding at an alarming rate, and birds are swarming in the sky, all signs of a massive tsunami. Tina runs for her life with the crowd. On the way, she sees her boyfriend, who has just gotten into his car. But instead of helping her, he floors the gas and speeds away. On the other side of the island, Charlie also senses the impending tsunami. She wants to warn the tourists in the distance, but Johansson grabs her, shouting that they have to leave now or it will be too late. Snapping back to reality, Charlie runs with Johansson toward the helicopter. Just as the wave hits, the helicopter successfully takes off, narrowly escaping the disaster. But Tina isn't so lucky. She manages to get back to her own car, only to see the monstrous wave just meters away. In what she knows are her final moments, she tries to call Johansson, but before the call can connect, she is engulfed by the towering wall of water. Safely back on land, Johansson turns on his phone and finds a desperate voicemail from Tina, her last words on Earth. Only then does Johansson realize how much Tina cared for him, and he is overwhelmed with regret for how he treated her. The tsunami strikes numerous towns along the Pacific coast, with news reports claiming over 1,000 people are missing. This makes pathogen expert Dr. Cecile even more uneasy. The small-scale infection outbreak she investigated also originated from the sea. This time, she can't hold back any longer. She reports her suspicion that the mutated bacterium may have contaminated the city's water supply to the authorities. They had tested all known antibiotics with no effect. She argues the only way to contain it is to warn the public not to drink untreated water and to halt all fishing activities along the Atlantic coast. The officials scoff at her proposal, saying they can't create such widespread panic and economic loss based on mere speculation. Cecile leaves the meeting in despair, having expected this outcome. However, when she sees news reports about swarms of white crabs appearing in multiple locations around the world, Cecile is reminded of the lobster that was the source of the infection. Since they all come from the ocean, other creatures might also carry the same pathogen. The now common white crabs are the perfect research subject. She skillfully cuts open a crab shell and finds a white, clot-like tissue inside. Cecile takes a sample and adds her own blood. Once again, she sees the mutated bacterium. She immediately sends her findings to other regions that have experienced the crab swarms, hoping they will conduct similar tests. The crab's white color and lack of eyes suggest they live in the deep sea near thermal vents. But why would they suddenly come ashore? With so many carriers of the pathogen, the danger they pose is far greater than that of a single lobster. Without delay, Cecile calls an academic press conference, attended by leading experts in related fields. Citing extensive data and research, she explains that the crab swarms that have recently appeared on the coasts of Japan, South Africa, and Brazil all carry the mutated bacterium. In the near future, this untreatable strain will seep into every water source in coastal communities. Dr. Cecile predicts this will lead to the largest coastal population migration in human history. An old expert objects, pointing out that while melting glaciers due to global warming have uncovered unknown pathogens before, they haven't caused any major disasters. Cecile shakes her head in disagreement. She explains this pathogen was brought ashore by an unknown invasive species. Another expert questions whether the crabs are intentionally trying to contaminate our water sources with the pathogen. Cecile's answer stuns the room. That is exactly the case. The press conference is broadcast worldwide. Johansson immediately contacts the shipping corporation's executives and asks them to arrange a meeting with Dr. Cecile. He also wants to speak with whale expert Leon. Leon, who has just watched the press conference, feels the same way as Johansson. He completely agrees with Cecile's theory. He returns to the small fishing village he knows and urges the fishermen to evacuate, but they stubbornly refuse. Like Leon, all the villagers grew up in this bay. If they leave, they will be like uprooted plants. Back at her hotel, Cecile receives a call from Johansson. It turns out the theory she presented at the conference was a more conservative version of her thoughts. Cecile believes that something is controlling all of this, and it's learning. The pathogen from the lobster was brought ashore by fishermen, but the infected crabs came ashore by themselves. The goal was the same, to cause harm, but the latter method was clearly more effective. On the other end of the screen, Johansson nods in agreement, saying that the whales, mussels, and ice worms he has studied all seem to show signs of external manipulation. Before hanging up, Johansson formally invites Cecile to meet in person to discuss this further. She isn't the only one invited. The meeting will bring together experts from various fields, each with their own unique insights. Leon believes the whale's behavior is as if they are possessed. Charlie thinks that a long-dormant thermal vent on the seabed has reactivated. Cecile has discovered an aggressive species carrying a mutated pathogen. Johansson puts all these ideas together. Something is behind all of this, manipulating the ocean and turning it into a weapon against humanity. The inexplicable events of the past few weeks all defy conventional scientific theories. But the supervisor can't accept this. She argues that every phenomenon has a logical explanation. Imagination and intuition are valuable, but they cannot replace the established foundations of human science. To do so would undermine human order and even our core beliefs. Charlie doesn't want the supervisor to quit and earnestly tells her old boss that caution is paramount in research. Otherwise, it could severely damage one's reputation and influence. Everyone understands this, but they still choose to press on. Johansson calls his financial backer again, hoping to present his proposal at a board meeting to continue his research. But when the executive learns that the supervisor has withdrawn, he is less optimistic about the proposal's chances. Still, Johansson wants to try. The other team members are also busy, compiling their data and research into thick reports. Charlie's bearded colleague has a thought. What if this intelligent entity doesn't want to destroy humanity, but simply wants to drive them away from the ocean? No one has an answer. Expulsion and destruction are two entirely different concepts. 3 days later, Johansson and his team are seated at a long table in a council chamber. He once again presents his theory that a mysterious entity is manipulating marine life to attack humans, and that its intelligence far exceeds our own. After all, no human can mutate existing species and create new ones. However, the panel finds Johansson's ideas too radical. They hope all this can be explained by existing science. Johansson shakes his head. He has already ruled out all possibilities, including lab accidents, leaks, and man-made genetically modified organisms. A woman on the panel asks that if his theory is true, what should be done next? Johansson's plan is clear. First, try to contact the mysterious entity, listen to its demands, and do everything possible to reach a peaceful resolution to stop the attacks. After a morning of presentations, the hearing concludes. The result is disappointing. The council does not approve Johansson's proposal. The lack of funding forces him to halt his research into the mysterious entity. But just when all seems lost, Mr. Mifune steps in. He fully supports Johansson's theory. Having built his fortune from the sea, he feels a responsibility to give back. Mr. Mifune decides to fully fund Johansson's project to help improve his hypothesis. The team is re-energized. Leon even brings 2 assistants, Alicia, his longtime partner, and Samantha, an astrophysicist. Samantha has collected sounds from all over the Earth and the galaxy, and the frequency of the sound from the silver mass has been detected before in Antarctica and the Arctic Ocean. The research team is now mostly assembled. Johansson names the mysterious entity controlling everything the Ur. He decides to set sail in 48 hours to find the Ur in the deep sea. The mission is bound to be dangerous, and Johansson can't guarantee everyone will return alive. He advises everyone to think carefully about joining and to say their goodbyes to their families. To his surprise, Charlie's bearded colleague is the first to back out. He is only 2 years away from getting his doctorate and doesn't want this project to create prejudice against him from his supervisor. Besides, he wants to spend more time with his family. Charlie says nothing, just nods and turns away. She hasn't forgotten her colleagues who died because of that silver mass. Apart from the bearded colleague, no one else quits. They all spend their limited time with their families. Pathogen expert Cecile is the most prepared. She has made a detailed list of her assets and left a will with her lawyer. Her biggest regret is breaking a promise to take her child on a trip for their birthday. Meanwhile, Johansson listens to Tina's last message over and over, tears welling in his eyes. After a long silence, he summons the courage to delete the message. He is ready to leave the past behind and move forward. On an exploration vessel owned by the shipping corporation, the captain receives new orders. They are to change course to pick up some new guests. Now, the various storylines have finally merged, and the hidden hand controlling everything is about to be revealed. The recent spate of marine disasters is likely orchestrated by a highly intelligent life form. A group of young experts has named it the WAR and is journeying into the deep sea to establish contact. It is a long and perilous journey, but everyone on board is filled with excitement. Astrophysicist Samantha plays the sound signal she captured before. Its frequency is almost identical to the sound from the mysterious glowing mass found in the deep sea. This type of signal is very unique and is mostly concentrated in the Arctic region. She has reason to believe that this could be one of the WAR's habitats. Charlie narrows down the search area. The Malloy Deep in that region is about 5,000 meters deep, perfect for the proliferation of advanced marine life. Moreover, the ice cover in this area has melted significantly over the past 2 years, making it more accessible to the outside world. This might be why the YAR remained dormant for 10,000 years and has only recently appeared. The team is invigorated and sets the first stop of their expedition to the Malloy Deep in the Arctic. Mr. Mifune, the investor of the expedition, requests that all of the team's findings and activities be recorded in real time and uploaded to a cloud server. This way, even if the ship sinks, their discoveries will not be lost. Alicia volunteers for this task. A lifelong photography enthusiast, she begins to move among the team members, documenting everything. Samantha and Leon are calibrating their sonar equipment. They are responsible for receiving signals from the YAR and attempting to communicate with it. Dr. Cecile and biologist Johansson are studying the neural tissues of the mutated organisms. They believe the YAR controls marine life by invading their nervous systems. Meanwhile, Charlie is working with the ship's veteran diver to prepare the submersible. If necessary, they will dive to the seabed to face the YAR directly. The entire team is working diligently toward their common goal as their exploration vessel sails steadily toward the Malloy Deep. As they are about to enter the Arctic Circle, the power in the bridge flickers, and the sound-receiving equipment experiences interference. This is a familiar phenomenon for the crew, who often encountered it while studying the ice worms. When scattered sea ice begins to appear, they finally receive the familiar sound. Samantha is overjoyed. This means the YAR is likely nearby. She decides to slightly alter the sound wave they collected and transmit it back at the same frequency to see if they get a response. The captain gives the order to slow the ship. A sound wave mixed with the cry of a baby is sent out, a gesture of peace and non-aggression. Samantha and Leon watch the screen intently, not daring to blink. Charlie is also busy. She decides to go into the sea herself. A small submersible is slowly lowered into the moon pool. As the bottom hatch opens, Charlie and the diver smoothly enter the water. As the submersible descends, silence envelops them, with only the faint light from the spotlights piercing the darkness. Suddenly, the radar shows an unidentified object approaching, but they can see nothing with their own eyes. The captain also notices the anomaly and tells Leon to try collecting sonar data. Leon indeed picks up a strange signal. When he plays it, everyone on the ship is stunned. They have never heard such a peculiar sound, like the cry of a dolphin, but much sharper. Then the electronic screen flickers again. The team speculates whether this point of light could be the YAR they're searching for. The most nervous are Charlie and the veteran diver at the bottom of the sea. Seeing the object getting closer, the diver suggests they leave, but Charlie is unwilling to give up. She wants to see what it is with her own eyes. When the submersible's lights are turned off, it blends into the water. But the captain thinks the risk is too great and orders Charlie to surface immediately. At this critical moment, the communication link cuts out. Everyone's heart sinks. The diver can't take it anymore. He quickly starts the submersible and heads back to the surface. As the exploration vessel's moon pool hatch slowly opens, everyone on board breathes a sigh of relief. Charlie looks out, disappointed, and thinks she sees a silver mass of light approaching. But the submersible quickly enters the ship, and she can't even be sure if what she saw was real. Not wanting to make a scene, Charlie quietly stares out at the dark sea, wondering if that glowing mass is the Yar itself. After all, her best friend died in the presence of that same light. Meanwhile, Leon and the others are ecstatic. When they break down the sound signal they just captured, they can clearly hear the cry of a baby, the warar, responding to the signal they sent out. Although they don't understand its meaning, they have successfully established contact. Samantha is an expert in communicating with unknown life forms. She stretches each sound wave and rearranges them, and a complete image appears on the screen, the evolution of humans from the ocean. If the Yur can receive and understand this, perhaps it will spare humanity out of a sense of kinship. Cecile's research has also made a breakthrough. She discovers that the glutamate levels in the neurons of all the mutated organisms are abnormally high, causing them to behave strangely. This might be how the Yar controls them. Now, Cecile's task is to find a way to inhibit this glutamate. The part-time documentarian, Alicia, finds the diver who was with Charlie. He didn't see the mysterious light and doesn't believe what Charlie saw. He thinks that these researchers always have strange ideas in their heads, often imagining what they want to see. Alicia shakes her head dismissively as he walks away. But just then, Alicia notices something floating in the filming bay. As she gets closer, she sees several wisps of silver light. Then the lights flicker, and the entire ship's power goes out. When everything returns to normal, Alicia is lying on the ground, unconscious. The team rushes her to the medical bay. Cecile finds cerebrospinal fluid on her, indicating a brain or spinal injury. After several hours of emergency treatment, Alicia's condition is stabilized, but strange red marks have appeared on her arm. Cecile suspects her nervous system has been damaged and has a terrible feeling. She is all too familiar with these methods. With the help of Leon and others, Cecile begins to draw Alicia's spinal fluid. Alicia can only react with instinctive twitches. After a series of tests, Cecile discovers that some components in the fluid are identical to the substances found in the mutated organisms. In other words, the Yar tried to invade Alicia's nervous system to control her. But where did they come into contact? Charlie has a sudden realization. The silver mass she saw in the deep was not a hallucination. It likely entered the ship through the moon pool. Samantha agrees, adding that the ship's sudden power outage was caused by a low-frequency wave. Though inaudible to humans, it is extremely destructive and could only have been emitted from inside the ship. Hearing this, the captain can't sit still. He goes to the control room and questions every department, but finds no clues. The security footage shows that Alicia's last known location was the moon pool. The captain orders the area to be sealed off immediately. This incident nearly resulted in a fatality, and the accompanying corporate executive has to report it to Mr. Mifune. The tycoon remains calm, saying he can accept an accident. The most important thing now is to arrange for Alicia to be sent ashore for the best medical treatment. But the rest of the team is not so calm. It's not just the fear of being the next victim. They are more worried that their patron will no longer be able to bear the losses and will cancel the expedition. Leon remarks that he never imagined he would see the Arctic Ocean with his own eyes. It still feels like a dream. Charlie's parents were also marine researchers, and she spent much of her childhood on research vessels. One day, they were caught in a violent storm. Charlie escaped in a lifeboat, but her parents were lost. Everyone assumed Charlie would hate the sea, but she feels that being close to the ocean brings her closer to her parents. Everyone waits in silence, hoping for the best. Their patience pays off. They receive another signal from the Yur. Suddenly, Charlie notices a faint glow coming from the moon pool. Peering through the glass door, she sees countless thread-like glowing lines in the blue water. Before her eyes, they converge to form a human shape. Charlie stares, wide-eyed in amazement. At the same time, Leon and Samantha are also stunned. The wave pattern they received is the image of human evolution they had sent out earlier. Mr. Mifune, hearing this news, immediately flies to the research vessel by helicopter. After extensive analysis, they determine that this creature, the Yar, is a single-celled organism. It can change its shape and density to form larger multicellular masses. But that's not the most incredible part. Earlier, the Yar had attacked Alicia and attempted to merge with her cells, a clear sign of aggression. Furthermore, the image the Yur sent back showed the Earth 250 million years ago, before the continents separated. This means they have existed far longer than humanity and can inherit memories from previous generations. Fortunately, things are not heading in the worst direction. At least the Ur has shown a desire to communicate. The captain is deeply moved. He never imagined that the ocean he knew so well could hide such a terrifying creature. 20 years ago, when he was in the Navy, this area was covered in thick ice. Now, only scattered ice floes remain. The veteran diver is filled with guilt. He was the last person to be with Alicia. If he had believed Charlie when she said she saw the silver light, perhaps he wouldn't have left Alicia alone. Charlie suddenly speaks up, suggesting that perhaps the Ur's intention in entering Alicia's sexy body was not to harm her, but to understand humanity. Samantha agrees, noting that just as they want to understand a new intelligent species like the Ur might feel the same way about them. In the ship's lounge, Mr. Mifune shows the captain a news report. A few days ago, the coast of Nigeria was hit by a massive tsunami, and many residents were lost. The ship's first mate's family was among them. After watching the video, the captain has to take the first mate aside for a difficult conversation. The biting night wind makes the ocean seem even crueler. At the same time, 2 crew members in hazmat suits go to the moon pool and collect a large container of seawater containing Ur cells, taking it to the lab. Dr. Cecile must quickly understand their characteristics. During a routine test, she accidentally discovers that ketamine can rapidly kill the Ur cells. Mr. Mifune asks if they can use this method to kill the Ur. The experts are stunned since they know a lab environment doesn't represent the real world. Johansson can't help but remind him that they came to negotiate with the Yar, not to start a war. The captain suddenly retorts that there's no point in negotiating. The Yar just destroyed the entire Nigerian coastline. Johansson tries to argue that the tsunami might have been set in motion before they began their peace talks, but the captain believes in strength. Since they have a weapon, they should show it. Mr. Mifune sides with the captain. Even if they want peace, they must let the Ur know they have the power to destroy it. This will give them the upper hand in negotiations. Cecile proposes a compromise, a small-scale test that won't cause widespread ocean contamination, but will still send a message. After some consideration, everyone agrees. Leon suggests another approach. Humpback whales were nearly extinct in the early 20th century, but human conservation efforts allowed them to recover. Leon can simulate this story as a whale song and transmit it to the Ur, showing them that humans also care about marine life. However, it's uncertain if this method will be effective. Meanwhile, Cecile is preparing for the poisoning experiment in the moon pool. Accompanied by the veteran diver, they slowly approach the moon pool in hazmat suits. Everyone watches anxiously from the observation deck. As a drop of ketamine falls, a silver mass of light flashes in the water. The next moment, a gelatinous substance rises, accompanied by a sharp, high-frequency sound wave. When everything goes quiet, the ship's power cuts out again. The veteran diver is left floating in the water, unresponsive. The crew scrambles to pull him out and perform CPR, but it's too late. To make matters worse, the ship's propulsion system is dead, leaving them drifting with the current. Soon it collides with a small iceberg. As everyone is in a state of shock, a large mass of silver light emerges from the water and begins to push the ship. Everyone is speechless. The Yar's retaliation has come swiftly. In the control room, the crew is calling for rescue when the ship begins to shake violently again. The Yar is trying to crush the vessel. The captain's face turns pale with fear. Johansson seizes the moment, arguing that in a constantly moving ocean, it's nearly impossible to kill the Ur. Their only option is peaceful coexistence. They must transmit their message of goodwill immediately. Samantha is dejected since the sonar equipment is down and needs to be repaired before they can transmit anything. Watching the ship drift rapidly, Johansson fears they are running out of time. He proposes a bold idea: inject the Yar into the deceased diver's body, allowing their cells to merge. This might make the Ur see that humans are a kindred species. However, there isn't much of the Ur on the surface. Charlie will have to take the diver's body deeper in the submersible. Just then, the Ur pushes the ship into a massive iceberg. They are running out of time. Waiting for rescue might be too late. They have to evacuate some people by helicopter first. The corporate executive tries to persuade Mr. Mifune to board, but he insists on staying. This is a critical moment for establishing communication with the YR. The priority is to evacuate the injured Alicia. Cecile, as the doctor, must go with her. Before leaving, she solemnly hands a vial of ear cells to Charlie, instructing her to inject it into the diver's heart at the last possible moment to avoid rejection. Suddenly, the ship shakes violently again. The silver mass has gathered all the nearby ice floes. By the time the evacuation helicopter takes off, the ship is completely surrounded by ice. Even if they regain power, they can't escape. From the helicopter, Cecile watches anxiously, praying for her teammates' safety. Meanwhile, Charlie is ready. The diver's body has been moved into the back of the submersible. As the launch platform descends, the submersible enters the deep sea once more. Although Charlie is not an expert pilot, she manages to control the submersible under the captain's guidance. At the same time, Samantha has repaired the sonar equipment. They begin transmitting signals of goodwill using whale songs. As the submersible descends deeper, Charlie's face is illuminated by a rainbow of colors. She is approaching the Yar's home. Looking at the brilliant ribbons of light floating around her, Charlie has a startling realization. The veteran diver has been dead for too long. Even if she injects the Yar, the cells might not merge. The Ur might not understand their message of peace. Only a living being can serve as a bridge between their two species. The crew in the control room vehemently objects, but the communication signal is lost. Charlie has already taken off her jacket and is sitting in the back chamber with the syringe. After sealing the inner door, she takes the syringe and plunges it into her heart. She hits the flood valve, and seawater begins to pour in. Charlie feels an icy chill as she gasps for breath. As the water covers her head, she loses consciousness. When the outer hatch opens, Charlie's body floats out. The whir seems to sense something. Specks of light form into ribbons, carrying Charlie away into the distance. The crew, detecting the anomaly in the submersible, knows that Charlie is likely gone. They mourn their heroic teammate in silence. But the next moment, the ice surrounding the ship begins to move. Soon, the vessel is free to sail again. The crew knows this is a signal of peace from the Ur. Charlie has succeeded. She is now suspended in the water, lying on a bed of fluorescent ribbons like a great bridge. The next day, waves crash on the shore. Charlie, unconscious on the sand, stirs and opens her now brilliant blue eyes. That is the complete story of the drama. They successfully reached an accord with the Ur. As for what Charlie has become, it's easy to understand. She is likely a product of the fusion between human and Yer cells, as hinted by the change in her eye color. The fact that she could survive the journey from a depth of 5,000 meters back to the surface is a testament to the Yer's incredible power. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.